since he can tell us, 1,140 odd, 1,200 small businesses, micro and medium businesses were assisted, I wonder if he knows how many were assisted by CIDB out of, that is, loans to similar businesses. Mr. Chairman, if the minister doesn't know, that's fine.
Mr. Chairman, through you, sir. So let me start by saying that, again, first of all, it doesn't. However, during the program and the ones that the Cayman Islands Center for Business Development were involved with, some 44 clients were successful in receiving the CIDB loan, and a further 15 are in the process and will most likely be successful.
And is that because you, Mr. Chairman, is that because the minister's ministry did not have sufficient funds, or they chose to go to CIDB?
Mr. Chairman, through you, the ministry had the funding, where the government were very quick and very generous in assisting the ministry with funding for the grants. The loan program is outside the scope of the Cayman Islands Center for Business Development, but we jumped at the opportunity to partner with and support the CIDB.
So, Mr. Chairman, does that mean those loans were much greater than the grants that you were given?
Mr. Chairman, that would be correct.
Thank you.
Member for Northside.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wonder if the minister could table a copy of the criteria under which the grants were given out.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have a standalone copy of it. Would the member like us to get one and table it later? Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, would it be possible in various questions and conversations, they seem that it appears to me that this 9.5 million is broken down into different components, such as actual grant, professional staff that you were just talking about, that cost, and I believe earlier somebody mentioned that there's a training component. Can we have an actual breakdown of this $9 million? How much was actually given out? What was the total professional staff cost? And what is the training component?
Mr. Chairman, we'll be happy to provide that as well. On its own when you're ready. And the member is correct. So we had a $3,000 grant program, was $1,000 a month for the first 3 months. We had professional training or professional assistance, as we just spoke about, and we also carried out several webinars by professionals, which some 400 people attended online. Those covered business strategy, managing your finances in a crisis, moving your business online, managing market risk during COVID-19, managing financial risk during COVID-19, and managing cash flow in a crisis. We are now moving into post shelter in place, returning to some level of normalcy, and we have launched, and the applications closed a week ago Friday. We extended it for another week on the second phase, which is more of a business continuity grant for small and medium-sized businesses that will allow them to access funding to assist them to continue to grow during this post shelter-in-place period, and enhancing their business, whether it's technical, online. And what I will do, Mr. Chairman, is when we do the eligibility criteria for the grants, the initial $3,000 grants, we'll also include the eligibility criteria as best as we can on this next phase, which is much more in line with what the center was designed to do. We also have 12 kiosks there at the Cayman Islands Center for Business Development that will be free of cost to 12 startups, where they can come there and work in the kiosks. They have access to the photocopier, the computers, etc., as well as the technical assistance available within the Cayman Islands Center for Business Development. So that is all encompassed. The 12 kiosks and the startups and what we call the incubator was part of the original plan for the Cayman Islands Center for Business Development. So we're now moving into something a little bit more normal, while still focusing on the recovery of the small and medium-sized industry, and assisting them to now participate in the post-COVID era going forward. So I'll provide both eligibility criteria as best as possible, and we'll provide a full breakdown on the funding.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, if I walked into this business development center this afternoon and was interested in a grant, what documentation would I be handed which could lead me through the process, or is this all verbal and subjective depending on what the business is, etc.? Is there a package that lays it all out that somebody could hand me?
Mr. Chairman, through you, there was an application process that was online, or you could have picked it up at the center. Like I said, for that, for the second wave of grants, those were that deadline closed a week ago Friday. However, you had a application process that you submitted, and then that was then submitted online, or you could drop it off and then vetted by the center for success. We were very happy with the level of response we got, and the center is in the process now of processing those applications.
Deputy Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I want to say publicly thank you to the Minister for the program, especially the grant program, because I had quite a bit of representation in Cayman Brac and Little Cayman of people who had taken advantage of it and the professional way it was handled. He's also today talked about the business development program, and if he could give us a commitment that at some point in the near future, if they could do a day trip to Cayman Brac to have a face-to-face with some of the businesses there that have been actually interacting by Zoom through the program itself here. But I think the face-to-face would be quite valuable for the small businesses.
Mr. Chairman, through you, I certainly, and I think maybe perhaps what we could do is actually develop a theme of a small business day and put on seminars and a full day of activities for small and micro businesses in Cayman Brac. I'll get the team to start working on that immediately.
Member for Bodden Town West.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the Honorable Minister. Just from the records, you said there was a total of $3.4 million that was lent. Okay, and can you tell us what amount was actually a grant? I mean, because the grant and the lending is separate, correct?
My apologies. That is a grant.
So
3.4
is a grant.
Yeah, I don't have. Let me see if we have the. Sorry, Mr. Chairman, and let me update, since a lot have happened since I laid the report on the table, the numbers, the total value approved applications that have been met at this point is 4,284,000. That is a grant. I do not have the CIDB figures, unfortunately.
Okay, so the grant is, how much you said now, 4.2 million?
4.284, yes.
Okay, so this is grant, so this is money that's given, which there's no expectation for repayment, correct?
That is correct. All of the funding from the Cayman Islands Center for Business Development are grants. We don't do loans. Now, in the second phase, there will be, and in both phases, there was a lot of, let's term it, homework that the participants or the clients had to do. So there were, the funds weren't just given, they had to show what they were using it for, provide the receipts, etc. That is the way the Center for Business Development works, and in the next phase it'll be the same thing, whether they're doing website design or marketing plans and stuff. The client will have responsibilities as a phase before payments go out, or as the payments go out, the clients have their responsibilities and their participation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Mr. Chairman, through you to the Honorable Minister, just looking back at the actual description that's on page 31 that refers to support for business initiative, and under the section where it says reason for appropriation change, it reads micro and small business COVID-19 relief efforts, including micro, small and medium enterprise, MSME, business interruption loan scheme, technical assistance program, micro and small business grant program. The part that jumped out at me was the business interruption loan scheme. Have there been a set amount or any funds being distributed under that section in terms of what portion we expect to be a loan?
Mr. Chairman, through you, that is actually the CIDB loan program, and the reason that is in there is because a small amount of the funds were used for the technical assistance in helping people prepare their applications for that loan program.
So just to be,
this Cayman Islands Center for Business Development at this moment and do not participate and do not have any intentions in participating in lending of funds.
okay, so just out of curiosity, has there been any set amount that's been set aside that will be done for the business interruption loan scheme? Is there any amount that's going to be set aside of the 9.5 million?
Again, Mr. Chairman, the loans are being administered. That is actually now closed, but I understand that the Cayman Islands Development Bank, the CIDB, is actually continuing the loan program, but they are administering it themselves. That is not a part of, the only part of this funding that was used for the loans was the monies being paid for the professional support services in assisting the small and micro businesses prepare their documentation to apply for the Cayman Islands Development Bank loans.
I got,
Yeah.
You said the cost was $50 per hour. Can you tell us what the total cost was?
Mr. Chairman, through you, the total amount of claims we have in at the moment is 31,000.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Well, most of the other concerns I had, the Honorable Member for Northside already raised, so I'll just wait on the information accordingly. Thanks.
Member for Georgetown Central.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Morning, Minister. Morning, staff. Minister, can you say whether or not there's been any analysis on the business licenses that are being offered, or whether or not the government would consider potentially putting a temporary hold on granting of license, just to make sure that those in the industry, in the various different industries, have a chance to survive? Because if we're going to be granting such high numbers and monies, it would be pointless for the government to want to give more competition, particularly now until we get a handle on the pandemic and its effects on our local market. Is that something that the ministry would consider? I'm not suggesting to, I know you believe in the free market concept and it's something you supported before, but potentially, particularly for industries that already have enough competition, to let those ones try to survive and live rather than bringing more into the market and hurting it, particularly when we're going to be lending the money. Is that something we would consider or investigate the effects of it?
Mr. Chairman, through you, sir, that's a little bit outside. That's a little bit outside of this, but anyway, I certainly will answer it. And there is no thoughts at the moment of restricting any businesses for Caymanians. If the member were to discuss perhaps the thoughts of looking at whether you want to make businesses only Caymanians or not, but if a Caymanian wants to open a business, that is their right. In fact, we have taken the opposite position during the summer periods, during the COVID periods. We waived the late application fees, late fees and application fees to a tone of $375,000. We felt that was prudent to do to assist and ensure that our very vibrant SME, small, medium, and enterprise companies survived and thrived, not only survived, but thrive post-COVID. And that, Mr. Chairman, was a total of about $375,000 that government waived fees that we anticipate has gone back into the local economy. That goes right along with the $5 million that I spoke about earlier under the incentive program, where we waive the application fees or entirely or heavily discount them. We feel that that's important to continue to support them in that way and over the next year as well. And those funds, that's funding that government could have collected, but we feel it's more important at this time for that sector to thrive, and that money will be spent back into the local economy and circulate and assist in that way. So to answer the members' questions, no, I certainly don't feel that I would want to deny any Caymanian the right to follow their dreams as an entrepreneur.
Thank you, Minister. Through you, Mr. Chair, by all means, I support the Minister in that concept of not denying any Caymanian, but you also got to protect the ones that are in business now. And I think it's fair to accept that we are all in a difficult business market under the circumstances. And I did highlight a temporary nature, not full-blown, whether it's for a 6-month period or less, or even a year until we understand. But I'm only asking if you would entertain an analysis of a temporary hold. So those who are in business now, just to give them some level of protection so they can survive. Because if you add, if God forbid, there is another 10% of businesses added to a saturated market in this kind of economy, it can make the matter worse. And much of the investments that we're offering or the opportunities that we're offering may be wasted and lost. So by all means, we don't want to hinder any Caymanian. But if you look at it in a different way, you can be protecting those Caymanians who are currently in business. I think it's something that maybe you want to analyze, not necessarily have to implement, but worthy of an analysis, even just on a temporary basis, to make sure that those who are in business stay in business and don't have more competition to deal with in a very difficult market.
Mr. Chairman, I think the one question the member had out of that was whether or not we plan to do any studies. That is exactly what the Cayman Islands Center for Business Development has been formed. We insisted, I certainly insisted, and the government supported me 100% in developing this center outside of the government administration building. This center belongs to the small, micro and small and medium-sized industries within the island. It is going to become a wealth of resources for them through professional services. We hope to expand that and work along with my TIAMA to ensure that if persons want to take their businesses overseas or want to launch a product overseas, that we can assist them with that. We've made contact with the affiliate offices in the UK, in Hong Kong, and other places that we would be able to assist our small our entrepreneurs in getting their services, goods and services to the world. But also here locally, the success of the center will be based on or valued on the information that it gets. So during this entire process, during this entire period, we have been collecting information on what we now consider our clients. And in that information, it is what can we do to assist them? What are their hurdles? What are the government hurdles? What, if any, business do they get from government? What kind of businesses can they offer government? And so all of the things, everything that we do is based around gathering information, continuing to monitor these companies to see what their growth is, to measure our input into the economy, to see if a company with our assistant grows from 2 employees to 5 employees, and what does that mean for the economy. And at the end of the financial period, the government can have a look at what this center has done and said, okay, the center has assisted small and medium-sized businesses in contributing X amount of money to the economy through rents, through hiring Caymanians, through the purchase of goods and the paying of duties, etc. And we'll be able to show what the results are of the center. And at the same time, we will be able to report to the government that this is where the small and medium-sized industry needs your support, and whether that is through protection or whether that is through ensuring, which many countries do, that a certain percentage of government contracts go to small and medium-sized businesses. Whatever that is, we'll be able to say that at the end of the first year.
Member for Prospect.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thought the Honourable Deputy Leader of the Opposition was next, and I was going to yield to him, but he's given me the nod. So I'll try to be brief. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, I have 2 questions for the Minister. But first, I too want to thank the Minister and his team for making these grants available. Certainly during the COVID time, we want to encourage businesses to retain their staff, and certainly it is programs like this that make that happen. Otherwise, the costs, not only on the social welfare side, but on the unemployment side, to the government would naturally increase. So we're very grateful to the Minister for his efforts in this regard. Unfortunately, but as is usually the case, a lot of businesses, small businesses, won't have heard about these grant programs until after the rebroadcast of these meetings. And again, this is no fault of the Minister or his team, because I know they've been out promoting these grants, whether it be press conferences or otherwise. The first question is, though, for those businesses who may have only learned of the grant program through these Finance Committee meetings or otherwise, will there be a second round of grants? And lastly, and I apologize, this may very well be a bit tedious, and if the Minister of this information will be contained in writing or provided in writing, I'm happy to wait for it. But it's a question of the number of grants applied for versus the number of grants already paid. I think the Minister stated that the total approved applications valued at $4.284 million, but I was wondering how much of that has already been paid out. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, through you, I thank the member for his comments and his questions. Mr. Chairman, I would encourage, and he is correct, no matter how much we try to get the information out there, we did extend the deadline for 1 more week, and the person still managed to, unfortunately, were unaware and did not get their applications in. We will assess how this round goes, and then and using the data collected and information collected to see where the greatest need is, we would then move on to the next phase, whatever that may be. What I would encourage any small and medium-sized business to do would be to come and register or go and register with the Cayman Islands Center for Business Development so that they receive any information as it comes out, and so they can participate in future seminars, webinars, or any other program that may be offered. So I would encourage them to simply register with the center. Like I said, these are short-term programs that we're doing now in post-COVID, but the Cayman Islands Center for Business Development, the vision is And certainly this government has committed its support in being a center that will be around for many, 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 many moons to come, that will be there as a resource and a support and a crutch for the small and medium-sized businesses and for our Caymanian entrepreneurs who are looking to start their businesses or grow their businesses or take it internationally. So I would encourage them to simply register with us. The member asked, second part of his question was, how was it? Okay. Did we do our final payments? Okay. So as I said, there was the total value of approved grants was $4,284,000, and to date, $3,735,000 have been paid out to Caymanian small and medium-sized businesses, therefore supporting our local economy.
Member for Bodentown West.
Sorry, Alan, just one last question. Just in terms of the information that's being provided, that I think the honorable member for Northside asked, did we do, perchance, a breakdown by industry in terms of what industries or what sectors they were in? And if not, or if so, you can just include them on the information that's being put together? Yeah, well, he's going to table it so everybody will get it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the first phase, we do not have that information. Our goal was to receive, process applications, and get the grants out. And we will end up with that information. At the moment, it's not a priority to compile that, unfortunately, as we moved into phase 2. We have actually started to on all of the applications received for phase 2, we're doing it by district and by industry. So at the end of phase 2, we'll have that information available immediately.
Member for Newlands.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wonder if the minister could, and I know this seems a little off topic, but I'll tie it in soon. The minister could give us some indication of how the enforcement arm of DCI is operating now. Are they at full capacity?
Mr. Chairman, through you, I thank the member for that question, and I do have to say that DCI were one of the departments I spoke about. Some 14 volunteers through central government that assisted in the grants program, and DCI was one of those that the members there really stepped up, and we're very, very appreciative of their effort and the collaboration. And we always talk about the one thing. My mentor in my first 4 years, the Honorable Deputy Premier, his motto about breaking down silos, and we certainly have that within our ministry, and where one department needs help, the other one jumps in. Unfortunately, yes, DCI is back in full force. In fact, they were inundated with trade and business license applications. And business is back to usual there, and the enforcement team is out and active.
Thank you. One of the minister could tell us if he's seen an increase in the number of reports or actions taken to deal with unlicensed businesses operating without a license.
Mr. Chairman, through you, I can't say that I've been given that report. No, I have not had. I usually get a quarterly update on the number of businesses visited, number of businesses found operating outside of or without a license. But I know that they are active out there. We have been working along with the police on several different types of businesses. We've been working along with Department of Environmental Health and the police again on the illegal garages, and I know that there were several in court this week for that. So they have been quite busy. I can't say that I've been told that there was an upsurge in illegal activity.
Thank you. I queried that because it had been brought to my attention that there were some instances, but I'm pretty sure by now those have been dealt with. But it just seems counterproductive to be trying to help businesses and then have people out there operating outside the law. So I just wanted to find out if that was becoming an issue.
Mr. Chairman, through you, I thank the member for that, and you're absolutely right. And we have taken, certainly, I have taken the direction, and DCI have followed, where we feel that we work towards making the process of receiving your trade and business license as easy as possible, including going 100% online. I spoke earlier about the waiver of the application fees to the sum of some $5 million, because my thoughts were, rather than spend a ton of money or millions of dollars on enforcement, closing people down, and let's find them, let's work with them, get them licensed, get them regulated under all of the other agencies that they would need, and assist now, along with the Cayman Islands Center for Business Development, assist the Caymanian people in realizing their dreams.
All in favor of TP80, support for business initiatives, for $9,521,000, standing part of the schedule to the bill, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd just like to thank the team. They were here all night last night from lunchtime yesterday waiting, and they were the first people back this morning. So I just want to thank them for taking time out of their busy schedules to assist us this morning. Thank you.
And I would add my thanks as well. That was a marathon.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I had spoken to the minister about a matter that I wanted to raise, has nothing to do with COVID or on this particular matter. Quite easy though. I had spoken to him just so that I understand that the licensing depot in West Bay is going to be moved, and if he could give me the timing on the move and expected length of the time stayed in that venue, and could he ensure that several notices are given to the public in regards to the move, time, and venue in particular.
Mr. Chairman, I thank the Honourable Speaker for that, the member for that question. The member is absolutely correct. We have struggled with the, I guess, if you want to say, the success and the popularity of the West Bay licensing office. We have finally found a location that we can move to quickly. It is in the Republic Center next to the Jake Scotts in West Bay. We're in the process of fitting it out, so the time frame should not be too long. I don't have an exact date, but I will ensure that we do notify, to give the public enough notice and do promote it. We will have 4 customer service stations there, a larger waiting area, approximately 25 people, seated waiting area, and we will also be able to do driver's license photos there as well.
And
so
restrooms.
And restrooms, yes. And so we will certainly keep everyone up to date. I do believe that we have to look forward in the future. We'll have to address the fact that we will need a full DVDL office in West Bay that can do inspections and a full suite of services. And I don't know, we'll have to talk about how we do that, whether it'll be a triple P or how we proceed with that. But this is going to give us a window to be able to breathe and give some relief there, and then we'll work on the next steps.
I want to thank the minister, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing the question, because outside the ambits of the vote. But I want to thank the minister for his concern and his help. He ought to, he born down there.
Colleagues, we're now going to turn our attention to the appropriations to the Minister for Health, Environment, Culture and Housing. Minister, is your team here? We'll give them a few moments to come in. Okay, we now turn our attention to the Minister for Health, Education, Culture and Housing. First item to be examined is HEA 20, Public Health Programs, Investigations and Treatments, $884,000. Are there any questions? Member for Georgetown Central.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Minister, and good morning to your staff. First, I want to say thank you so much for everything you do, particularly through HSA and the relevant other departments that have been helping us through this pandemic. God bless you and keep up the good work. Minister, I only have one question in respect to this area, and it's regarding the AIDS Foundation. Can you confirm whether or not the AIDS Foundation has been given any grants, and if so, when was the last one? The AIDS Foundation is a very important one that educates the people in respect to being safe from this deadly disease. I just want to know if they've been giving any grants lately.
Mr. Chair, the member, I want to thank the member for the question. And he mentioned the AIDS Foundation. I assume he means the Cayman AIDS Foundation. There's no direct appropriations for 2020 or 2021 for the AIDS Foundation, as he noted. But the funding is there, but it's been appropriated through the Public Health and Red Cross office.
Thank you, Minister. Through you, Mr. Chair. So the monies are there, but they are awarded to the Cayman AIDS Foundations through the Red Cross. They would have to apply for the grant through them. Am I correct?
That is what they deemed to do, because we needed agencies that could properly manage what was being done, and the ministry wasn't really in a position the way that it was currently done to manage this process.
Thank you, Minister. Could you explain the process of foundations and how a grant would be awarded? Because based on my little knowledge about grants, it would be directly with the government. Is it that they are meeting a certain criteria why it has to go through the AIDS Foundation as opposed to directly a grant from government?
As Mr. Chair, as noted earlier, the funds were now directed to Public Health and the Red Cross. I must admit on this honorable house that there were certain concerns brought in the way that these funds are being managed through this agency, and discussions are ongoing. We've reached out to the Cayman AIDS Foundation, and there were some attempts to have meetings to try to find out how to proceed, and but we ensured that the funding was not lost and appropriated to Public Health and Red Cross to ensure that the programs would continue.
Mr. Chair, through you. Thank you, Minister. Obviously, we would want to ensure that marketing and education around AIDS virus is done appropriately, and we do so by awarding grants, so we know different foundations are executing part of that responsibility of edification. How do you monitor then the amount of money you put towards that goes to Red Cross? Is there a monitoring process to make sure that because Red Cross obviously covers a number of different areas, that the appropriation that would be normally suited for the Cayman AIDS Foundation is spent with the AIDS Foundation? Whether it's, I'm assuming you're doing it through the Red Cross because of accountability factors of the money. But how do you ensure that the Red Cross is helping the Cayman AIDS Foundation in the spending and the marketing of what they do.
Mr. Chair, thank the member for the question. I want to note that I've personally met, since being elected 2017, I've personally met with them at administration, at the ministry, with the foundation. At the time when I first got there, I listened to their plight, and I actually doubled their funding. So it is one that I want it to be made clear that I see as valuable, and one that is necessary for the public to be educated about AIDS. And but as to what the Red Cross or the public health is actually doing now with those programs, the report is pending as to what's being done. I don't have that information available right now.
Thank you, Minister. Last supplementary, Mr. Chair. I want to say thank you, Minister, for continuing to try to do whatever it takes to support this group. But the Cayman AIDS Foundation is very important, and they take their job very seriously. So if there's anything that we can do to assist them to either get their books in order, I don't know what issues that I'm not going to ask you for the details on the floor of the House, but whatever those details are, that we can assist them, whether it's helping them with their accounting or administrative work, because that money goes a very far way, in particular with marketing. With my former career being in media, I know that most of the cost for information is the cost for dissemination, and it's not a cheap exercise. So we have to assist the Cayman AIDS Foundation in any particular way, whether that means getting them up to par, where government can legally give them the money to assist with the dissemination of information about the disease called AIDS. So anything I can do, you can call me as well, Minister.
I thank the member, and just to go on record that the monies is still available for these programs. So the funds were not taken away totally, just redirected.
Member for Northside, I think you had your eye next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wonder if I could get a breakdown of the programs that this $884,000 is expected to cover.
Mr. Chair, thank the member for the question. The breakdown in funding that the member has asked for is as follows. And this was for the startup costs. As we approach COVID, it's $364,200 for equipment, $184,000 for staff, $35,600 for supplies, which is a total of $583,800, an ongoing monthly cost of $199,600. There's an additional quarantine facility for $9,000 in equipment, $10,000 for clinical support staff, $50,000 for accommodation, $10,000 for facilities, cots, pillows, blankets, etc., $20,000 for food and drink, basic toiletries, $500, internet services, $500, an additional $100,000.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I wanted the minister to want to change the description of this because when I read it, I assumed that it was new public health programs because COVID expenses, I assume, are covered in the $40 million that is under your ministry, which was distributed to a lot of other ministries. Your ministry didn't spend $40 million on COVID. So this is no new programs. This is money that was spent gearing up for COVID. But my question is then, why isn't that under the $40 million and why is it broken out like this? No, I'm not complaining about giving it, but don't put it under this title. Well, I do.
Mr. Chair, this is nothing to do or related to the $40 million. This is the public health output, and this was from the onset of COVID and the initial setup cost.
So the $364,000 on equipment, that was for what, the quarantine centers, or was that to gear up the existing public health department, which I assume is still within the HSA, to be able to handle COVID? And would it be possible to get an idea of what kind of equipment that was?
Yeah, the 364,000.
Yeah.
That was for beds. 6 beds, 16,550. Ventilators, 4, 133,610. Monitors, 4, 23,977. Overbed tables, 6, $3,000. Dividers, 316. Cost unit at 16, 5,069.60. Feeding pumps, $1,600. IV poles, 8, $2,000. Procedure trolleys, 4, $1,600. Regulators, 20, $2,800. Suction pumps, 8, $9,993. PCR lab equipment, $164,000.
To you, Mr. Chairman, none of those things are normally related to public health. They're related to a treatment center, a care unit, such as what the HSA operated. So is this equipment for public health, or is this equipment that went to the HSA to prepare for COVID treatment? Because two different things.
It's kind of the same, and it's through the public health to HSA.
Member for East End.
You're in more trouble than me. Mr. Chairman, I heard the minister say that the funds earmarked for AIDS prevention, education of the public and whatnot, has been sent to Red Cross. Is that for 2020 and 2021?
Yeah, 2020, 2021.
Okay.
Public health, and it was split up between public health and Red Cross.
How was that sent to them under what agreement?
So through a purchase agreement with the Red Cross, we have existing, and then through public health also.
You have an agreement with Red Cross? So when was that executed?
I don't think that this has anything to do with that, though, with this vote.
It does.
But
I'm sorry, Minister, but
I
it
welcome
does.
the question, but the figures are not in this vote.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, what I'm trying to establish is what kind of agreement we have with Red Cross.
We have a purchase agreement with the Red Cross.
It's not listed here. If it's not in this document, it does not exist. It's the same thing we had with the garage. If it is not here, it does not exist. That monies had to be approved by this parliament, and the law requires a purchase agreement to be in place before you approve it.
That was done.
Well, it was not reported to this parliament. So we did not agree with it. We did
It was
not,
supposed to be a
we
part
did
of
not
the initial
approve
budget.
it. Pardon me?
It was supposed to be a part of the initial budget.
Was supposed to be and is are two different things. Well, Mr. Chairman, let me just say, and I'm not trying to embarrass the minister, but if there's a side agreement, he needs to produce that. If he is using the people's money to send to a NGO, which requires accountability, i.e. in the form of statements being sent back to the executive, and in particular his ministry. And the ownership agreements that we approved for the 2020 year, January 1st to 31st December 2020, and for the January 1st, I don't see it. If someone, what page?
Page 33.
Ownership. Okay, I was looking at the wrong one. Purchase agreement, but this did not. Did this instruct the ministry to spend that money through the Red Cross? Through the where is the foundation purchase agreement? The AIDS Foundation. Cayman Islands, I don't see any AIDS Foundation here.
Sir, Mr. Chair, I don't think that he would see AIDS Foundation, because the funds were reappropriated to public health and to Red Cross, so they wouldn't be there.
Mr. Chairman, the minister is saying the funds was reappropriated. By whom? And from where?
No, if you are on page 36 of the outputs delivered in 2020-2021, where the Red Cross vote is, it's not red, it's British Red Cross.
I am not talking about that. I'm talking about the AIDS Foundation. Somebody direct me to where that money was appropriated by Parliament, and then show what agreement was made by this Parliament, approved by this Parliament, to send it over to Red Cross. Okay, can you explain?
Initial budget itself that we did in 2019 never had AIDS Foundation in there at all.
But are we saying that we sent monies to Red Cross on behalf of the AIDS Foundation? Isn't that what was said?
Continue the AIDS programs.
But Mr. Chairman, I thought the minister said that because there were problems with the AIDS Foundation, they sent it over, they sent the same appropriation that they were supposed to get over there for Red Cross to deal with it.
And once the management issues were solved, they could access the funds from Red Cross or public health.
That's even worse. Explain to me, Mr. Chairman, please enlighten me.
My understanding is that through to the end of 2019, there may have been or would have been funding directly to the AIDS Foundation. That ended when we approved the budget for 2020 and 2021. There was no funding for the Cayman AIDS Foundation. However, the funding that would have gone to them was divvied up between public health and the Red Cross to enable them to continue a number of the programs that were being delivered by the that they would have been paying for through the purchase agreement with the AIDS Foundation that no longer existed.
Okay, now explain
So
to
they
me,
were
sir.
redirected in the 2020 and 21 budget.
It is carrying on programs, but explain to me the ministers, because you're the accountant, not me. Explain to me the minister's last statement that the AIDS Foundation still have access to it. True.
They don't have access, they need to apply.
They can't be using the country's money if it was not appropriated for them. I can understand the Red Cross now managing the dissemination of information, the education of people, of the populace, and we have put the money there for them to use, but AIDS Foundation cannot have access to that. And if that is what is happening...
Mr. Chair, I didn't say that AIDS Foundation could have access to the money.
You said upon
I said
application,
that
Minister.
there are ongoing discussions with the Cayman AIDS Foundation. Once we're able to have the final discussions with them, then we would direct them as to how they could access funds if they wanted to go that route.
Mr. Chairman, I'm totally confused now because the only access they can have to funds is through this parliament, unless the executive in emergency circumstances give it to them. We have cut them off. Let's use simple language. We have cut them off because we were not comfortable with their management of the people's funds. Now they cannot have access if they clean their management up because there's no money for them. There is none. We are continuing the programs that we thought were suitable for that money, but we have given it to Red Cross to do. They cannot apply to Red Cross for 1 cent, nor a 5 cent, nor 25 cents to buy a candy, nor a condom.
Mr. Chairman, is it?
Mr. Chairman, I thank the clerk. We approved 39,325 and 39,325. That is 2020 and 2021 respectively. And 2019 is 22,000. So I suspect the money that will increase by over $10,000 was the program for the AIDS. But this is the British Red Cross Cayman Islands branch healthcare education program to increase safe sex practices among youth between the age of 13 and 19 years old by providing information and education about the means of transmitting and preventing the spread of HIV/AIDS and other sexually transmitted diseases. AIDS Foundation can't get this money. So don't tell anybody that they can apply. Or when they get their management straightened up, we will direct them as to how to get this money. I hope that's not happening.
Mr. Chair, what I want to make clear for the committee and for the public listening is that as minister, I support an AIDS program. I support the work that was supposed to be done. I ensured that the funding was secured and didn't fall away to ensure that the programs continued. Those funds were redirected to public health and Red Cross. The management issues with the Cayman AIDS Foundation has to be sorted out. There's no funds there, and there are no funds voted for the Cayman AIDS Foundation. We don't even have to mention that name. What we need to know is that the funding is there at public health and at Red Cross to continue the program.
Mr. Chairman, if I may just say to the minister that I believe we are all supportive of the education of our people on AIDS. We have discussed that extensively here. I have asked on a number of occasions about the education program and the continuation thereof. The member from Georgetown Central, I believe it's his concern also, and I dare say all members of this honorable House. The minister say all we need to know is that the money is there. That's not all we need to know based on the information, the testimony that he is given to this legislature to the membership of this legislature because it's his responsibility and only he can be questioned. And the testimony from him, the evidence from him, indicates that the AIDS Foundation can have access to this money, and they cannot. That's the concern I have. If we were so mindful to not give it to them, we cannot now go and give it to them, whether their management get fixed or not. We are comfortable with the program that we're doing. That's where it needs to stay until this legislature says no or approves it otherwise.
Mr. Chair, as far as I'm concerned, the minister can't give any money to the AIDS Foundation. We have given the money to Public Health and Red Cross.
Mr. Chair,
Member for Georgetown South. I think we've aired this quite extensively now, and we understand what the position is, so we need to move on. But go ahead, I'll let you ask a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do see the predicament the minister is suggesting that though it may not go to the Cayman AIDS Foundation, there's allocations for education about AIDS. It's just not necessarily with the Cayman AIDS Foundation. Some with the Red Cross and some with Public Health. I'm looking at the purchase agreements from the last budget for January 31st, 2020 and January 31st, 2021. And you heard the Honorable Leader of Opposition just read the amounts. And in the description, it's 13 to 19. So this does not deal with education about AIDS for adults where most transmissions are at. So I'm trying to find the appropriations for public health where in there it deals with education, because the education about AIDS is obviously good that we're covering it within the schools and young people, but the reason why I bring up the Cayman AIDS Foundation, because their prominent goal was dealing with education on AIDS with adults and more adult-related information and publication. That is not covered in this in respect to the Red Cross. So what I'm concerned about, and why I asked about the grant, is because if it's not funded, we're not going to get the information out there about a serious disease comparable to the pandemic we're dealing with right now. This is a serious matter, so I want to know that there's necessary funding. It doesn't have to be with Cayman AIDS Foundation, but is Public Health allocating their funds for the adult information? Because we see that the kids' information is covered. Thank God for that.
Mr. Chair, what I want to make known so that the public knows that this was always a duplicitous effort. The Public Health and Red Cross has always assisted in AIDS awareness programs. This is nothing new. They're just getting additional funding to do more awareness now.
Mr. Chair, my only response to that by way of question is obviously our past governments have seen the Cayman AIDS Foundation as a valuable organization to disseminate information surrounding AIDS. They've been granted before. So whatever the problems are administratively, I think we should resolve them because they do a good job in disseminating information about AIDS in the Cayman Islands. So to say that only Red Cross or the health services can do that, then we would never have granted them AIDS Foundation monies before. So they're obviously meeting a niche in the market for information. So all I'm suggesting, I know the minister is supportive of information, but let's just try to help the foundation because they go far and beyond what more than Red Cross or Public Health does in respect to the information about HIV. Thank you, Minister.
Mr. Chair, as I said, the discussions are ongoing. That is the help that we're talking about.
All in favor of HEA 20, Public Health Programs, Investigations and Treatments for $884,000, standing part of the schedule to the bill, please say aye. Aye. Those against, no. The ayes have it. EI 81, Ministry of Health, Environment, Culture and Housing for the Health Services Authority, additional expenditure incurred during 2019.
Mr. Chairman,
Questions?
this is probably off the beaten path, but And you can take the question into consideration, whether it's you or whether it's the Minister of Health, in regards to the health insurance assistance. As I said, I don't know if that's coming through finance, as in Cineco, or Minister of Health, and but I would like to hear some answer, because I am getting questions on it in regards to the program as outlined and announced by the government for the assistance during this awful time that we're going through. As I said, I know we're a little bit off here, but you can take it on board, either you or the minister.
I think it'll be up to the ministers whether he can, because I don't know what information he would have here to be able to deal with it, because, as you say, it isn't covered here specifically.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it can be him or it can be you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
But somebody need to say something. Is
Yeah.
it through Cineco? That's one of the questions I have. Is it through Cineco or is it
Mr.
through
Chair.
health?
What I can add to that, and I thank the member for the question. It is an ongoing question, and it's out there. I've made many statements publicly at press conferences, etc. In regards to this. The government sees this as something that we have to do. Obviously, there's a lot that the government is trying to assist with in many different areas, and obviously the government is not going to have funding in every area for everything that pops up, so we need to take stock and try to make available what's necessary. We see this as a necessary program. There's ongoing discussions with the initial program that we had in April, May, and June. There were some challenges we had with that current arrangement, the way that was set up. And there's been ongoing discussions ever since with Cineco, trying to find a way forward. I think Caucus indicated that they would prefer that route. I've received some information from those discussions, and because of the possible volume of persons that may take up this opportunity, Cineco is now saying that for the magnitude of this program, they wouldn't be able to properly bring this online until December 1st, 2020. So that's the, in fact, I just read that email half hour before I came here, so there's further discussions for me to have with the Health Insurance Commission and Cineco.
So, Mr. Chairman, is the minister saying that there is an expectation from his side that it could be dealt with by December? The funding, etc., is in place, or at that time it will arise?
We've been dealing with it, trying to redirect funding to. It's going to cost. Well, when we looked at it from September, it was going to cost about $1 million based on how many persons had got assistance in the past, and we obviously we're using funds from 2021 already from different votes to try to assist persons during this COVID-19, and still trying to finalize taking funds from other votes to make this program happen. That is quite an emergency, actually, and we recognize the need and the urgency.
Just so that I'm clear, because I have people, and one constant complainer, but it's more than one. So when the program was announced, it came up, and of course people are inquiring about it. So it's not something that has happened yet, although it was announced. It's something that you're dealing with, and you're trying to get and I say, sorry, Mr. Chairman, but talking to the minister who's sitting right next to me, sorry about that, is they're expecting then in December, that, which is another month not away, that would be, hopefully, that program is completed and people would be able to access the program.
Yes, sir, and that I guess once it starts in December, then we'd have to continue it as long as we
Yeah.
possibly can fund it, and you know, this is actually one of my pet peeves. I can actually say that as Minister of Health, I recognize that the potential problem, because we had dealt with pensions and in giving pension holidays, but I guess there wasn't a way of giving a health holiday because we still need health insurance. We still need to, live and visit the doctor, and it's a very serious one. I recognized it very early, brought it up to caucus. They were very supportive from the onset. Obviously, we needed to find a mechanism to get this done. They wasn't really comfortable with the route that my ministry had took. With the first 3 months of it, they wanted to, because we had recognized some challenges with that at the ministry that we had reported to caucus, and then asked caucus if they wanted to continue with this arrangement even though we had these challenges. So they wasn't comfortable with that and wanted to explore other routes, which we did, and we think we found a way forward that will suit all.
If we can get back now to EI 81, Ministry of Health and Environment for $9,247,062. Questions? Member for Georgetown Central.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Mr. Chair, to the Minister. There seems to have been some difficulties with the quarantining facilities, as there's been some reports of power outages at some of the locations. Can't get phone charge, persons complaining about the treatment, not having access to persons to contact if there's an emergency while they're in quarantine, lack of information in respect to when they're leaving, when they're going to get their test results. As we can imagine, being in quarantine is somewhat like being incarcerated, which causes difficulty on its own, and we have to try to balance and manage that, which is not an easy task. But can the minister say what issues have arrived and how you're dealing with them, and the ones that I've suggested, have you heard of any of these concerns, and what is the ministry's position on them?
Mr. Chair, I really thank the minister, the member from Georgetown Central for that question. However, it's a bit tricky as to who's responsible for the actual quarantine sites, which would be the deputy governor. I haven't really heard those concerns. We actually get an update every week as to, possible breaches or otherwise. If you had some concerns about testing, then I have the personnel, I have the CEO here that could provide information on that. I don't have full information on the quarantine facilities, which is the deputy governor is managing.
Thank you, Minister. But that being said, can we just focus on the testing then? During quarantine, it's still related to quarantining, but the testing part, which comes at the end. I've had complaints where persons, when they are told 14 or on the 15th day they will be tested, and with the efficiencies that we're having now with testing, persons can usually get the test results within hours. Maximum a day, I think, is the 24-hour period that they give them. But I've had cases where individuals say they didn't get their test results till a following day. Now, a day being locked up, I know it may sound bad, but a day in locked up seems like a long time. So, what are we doing to ensure that persons who choose to come back home or choose to visit the Cayman Islands are getting prompt scheduled testing at the end of their quarantine time according to law, and getting them on a timely basis? Because I've heard this not once or twice, but about 35 times now, and it's obviously a recurring issue.
Mr. Chair, if you will allow me, I will ask the CEO to introduce herself.
Good morning, Lizette Yearwood, Chief Executive Officer of the Health Services Authority. Through you, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for that question, and I do agree with you. Since the beginning of the pandemic, the testing, as you understand, would have been something that was ramped up gradually, and at one point in time, the turnaround time would have been a couple of days. However, with the efficiencies and with additional equipment that we have on hand now, the turnaround time, if everything goes as it should, is roughly 24 hours. And we aim really to get the results back on the same day, because we understand the concerns of the individuals after being in quarantine for 14 days. However, as you can imagine, when we have large numbers of these results to get out, calling the individuals is not the most efficient way to go. We've automated the process in order to make it more efficient, and that involves emailing the individuals. Now, there have been instances where the email addresses have been incorrect. Sometimes we have gotten the incorrect email addresses, or maybe the personnel that was registering them have keyed in the wrong information for the email. So we have gotten bounce backs, and those individuals, they would be a smaller number. Those now are called out on an individual basis to make sure that we get the corrected email address, because ultimately they want to get the certificate so that they can give to their employer or their landlord or whatever. So that is probably the reason why you've gotten those concerns, where we've had individuals that didn't have, we didn't have the proper email address, and sometimes when we called them, we couldn't get them either. So that's when we had to do a little bit more problem solving in order to try to find out how to contact those individuals. But by and large, those concerns have been reduced greatly, because, you know, I monitor this on a daily basis, and the number of concerns have reduced because we have tried to automate a number of the processes to make it more efficient, and also sensitize the staff. We're trying to ensure that it's the same staff that are doing the registration, so that, you know, they're double checking. We've even wrote a script in IT to check the email addresses to validate them before we send the email, the results out. So I'm hoping that you will find that those complaints are reducing on a regular basis. And if there's still individuals that are having concerns, by all means, let us know, and we will make sure that we will get to those individuals.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Through you, Mr. Chair, I do appreciate that comprehensive answer in the totality of testing. But I was trying to be more specific to the quarantining-related testing, because persons who averagely just go and get tested, that function will work quite fine, because they can go on with their daily lives. Persons who are in quarantine, even if you were to send them the email, they still need to get permission by those who are in charge to leave the facility. So who needs to be notified is the facility to say, now release these individuals because they're COVID-free. So, and I understand that you say you don't normally call, but the testing to the facility in the management is the key part, wouldn't it be?
Mr. Chairman, through you, yeah, I'm sorry if I didn't answer your question specifically. As far as the government quarantine facilities are concerned, we communicate with the persons who are managing the facility, and they will release the individuals. I think, you know, the quarantine at persons' homes is done a little bit differently now. Those individuals we communicate with directly.
Thank you so much. That does clarify that. Ms. Yearwood, since you're here, and through you, through the minister, Could you give us understanding of how quarantine works? Because obviously you interact with the quarantine management team, and from a testing perspective, I know you're not in charge of that. I think we understand it's under the deputy governor. Can you give us an idea how that works? Because we don't have any other appropriations for the deputy governor, so I'm not going to get the opportunity to try to clarify this for those persons out there who may want to come home and hearing these horror stories and maybe preventing some Caymanians from wanting to come home, because being 14 days in quarantine is like a lockup, and they want to get out. They set their minds on the intention of that time, and they hear these stories. So can you give us an idea based on your experience?
Remember, I've been quite lenient so far in allowing, really wide-ranging questionings, but we've been at this now for, good 20, 30 minutes. I haven't heard one question raised with regard to the appropriation at hand that we are examining. I think we really need to bring the conversation and discussion now back towards it. And if there are no questions, then I'll put the vote. Time is running against us now.
Mr. Chairman.
Emma for Newlands.
I wonder if we could get, going back to the appropriation, if we could get a breakdown of what this additional expenditure was.
Mr. Chairman, through you, the breakdown of that $9 million for the 2019 outputs is for the indigent, $7.07 million, geriatric services, $1.2 million, and chronic ailment, $219,000 for 2019.
Thank you. So, it's almost $10 million, so I'm just curious as to why, if we had an existing budget and we budgeted for those things, why we had to go so to the tune of almost $10 million more.
Very good question. Yeah, I think I get asked that question every single year. As you can appreciate, the indigent population does change from time to time, the makeup of the population, and therefore their illnesses would differ depending on who makes up that population. And every year we see that we are actually over, but then again, it's all around how that, the illnesses that those individuals present with.
And just to confirm, these are individuals who clearly wouldn't have health insurance and who would turn to government for assistance with illnesses. I know we had discussed some time back about sort of getting a system in place where they're covered by insurance rather than government having to come up with the cash. Is there any movement towards doing that now? Or any progress with doing that?
Mr. Chair, government still has to try to find a solution for these for this population. The cost, the amounts that came back were too high actually, and so we weren't able to roll out that program. Hence the reason why we're still managing it in this manner.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to be clear, we're talking about the elderly as well, right? That they're included in that, because I knew we were looking at a special plan. So there's no possibility then that we're going to move forward with a specialized healthcare plan for the elderly.
There are some discussions ongoing in different realms in trying to achieve this. Yeah. It's not a simple situation to solve.
I can appreciate that through you, Mr. Chairman, because I mean clearly that's a high risk group, so the premiums are going to be extremely high.
Yeah.
The only suggestion I'd make in closing is to say, well, maybe we should look at spreading the risks wider and including more people in that group so that the premiums come down. But you need the cooperation of the insurance industry, so I understand.
Yeah.
Member for Northside.
Mr. Chairman, in the form of a question, can the minister confirm that I've been telling him for years that you cannot have a specific health insurance program for senior citizens? That flies in the face of the whole principle of health insurance, of spreading the risk. You have to mix the elderly and people who are sick with the young who are not sick. And we all get old eventually, and the young have to pay a little more so that the elderly can pay a little less. Anytime you try to pigeonhole these groups of people, you're going to wind up with each group paying more than the other.
Mr. Chair, I can handsomely say that I concur with the member. We've tried it many times, and we've got to the same result. We have to go towards some kind of national program.
All those in favor of EI 81, Ministry of Health, Environment, Culture and Housing for the Health Services Authority, additional expenditure incurred during 2019 for $9,247,062, standing part of the schedule to the bill, please say aye. Those against, no. The ayes have it. That concludes the appropriations to the Minister for Health, Environment, Culture and Housing.
Mr. Chair. Yeah. Mr. Chair, I just want to thank the team for all the hard work throughout, especially this year. The CFO, the acting chief officer, and the CEO who is here in the building, and plus the other staff extended and the ministry. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next on the schedule is actually my ministry, Ministry of Finance and Economic Development. While the FS gets ready, I'm just going to ask everyone to remain in their seats while I step away for 1 minute. Colleagues, let's go ahead and get back to the business at hand. We are now going to turn our attention to the appropriations to the Minister for Finance and Economic Development. Since I am sitting in the chair, I will ask that my Financial Secretary, the Honourable Kenneth Jefferson, that he will field the questions on my behalf. So let's move now to FE7, fees arising from standby borrowing arrangements, $4,626,044. Are there any questions? Member for East End.
These are anticipated fees.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kenneth Jefferson, Chief Officer, Financial Secretary, Minister of Finance and Economic Development. Mr. Chairman, through you to the Honourable Member, yes, these are anticipated fees in the sense that the government's efforts to secure a line of credit and a long-term loan have yet to be executed, but upon the agreements being executed, these fees will arise.
It's just that it says fees are rising from it, you know?
Right.
And arising to me say that they have already are being incurred now.
Mr. Chairman, through you, I understand the Honourable Member's comment on the caption, but it was written from the perspective of if the committee is agreeable to the loan appropriation, which is a bit further down on the order paper, on the bill, the schedule to the bill, if it agrees to that amount, then these fees will arise from making that approval.
Okay. And what is the, you want to break those down, the interests and payments?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As honourable members have received quite a large bundle stapled together of a considerable amount of information. The very first page is dealing with what the honourable member has just asked for, and on that very first page, the total amount that's being requested as a supplementary expenditure is $4,626,044. And on that first page, the amounts that make up the 4.6 million are shown there. Mr. Chairman, it's shown there as an arrangement fee for approximately 1.4 million, a standby, and these are the amounts applicable to the 2020 financial year. A standby fee of approximately 800,000, so 783,924. Underwriting or a commitment fee of $330,000 approximately. Other fees, I'll detail them out, Mr. Chairman, so that the listening public can hear. Other fees, 111,725. Legal fees, 102,500. Administrative fees, 30,750. For a subtotal relating to 2020 of $2,846,429, and then amounts applicable to 2021, the most substantial one being standby fees of $1,755,015, and then the administrative fee of $24,600, for a grand total of $4,626,044. And then if honourable members turn to the overleaf page, there are detailed supporting calculations for the most significant numbers that make up the 4.6 million. Just, Mr. Chairman, by way of illustration, if we turn on the over page and we see the detailed analysis for, as by way of example, the 2021 standby fee, the $1,755,015. Towards the bottom of that page, we have the detailed makeup of that standby fee calculation. So, Mr. Chairman, in the last table on that page, we see that the line of credit that the government has available to it is in Cayman Islands dollars, $330,460,000 and $330,460,000. Thank you. Dollars. We don't anticipate making a use of that facility until around the 1st of July, all goes well. And so the funds will be for 2021, the funds of, i.e. the 330.46 million will be on standby for half the year, the 181 days. And the standby fee basis is calculated using 70 basis points. So 70 basis points on 330.46 million for 181 days, roughly half the year, would then give us a standby fee of $1,163,036 and so forth for the standby fees for the periods of time that the funds will be essentially there available for use by the government. I think it's well known and understood that if the banks are making loan funds available to the government, and even though they're not utilized, the fact that they're there available and standby for government's use, there is a cost for that facility, for that ability, and that is what this particular fee is all about. So that's, Mr. Chairman, one of the most significant makeup of the 4.6 million. There was an arrangement fee as well, Mr. Chairman, 330 million CI dollars at 4 to 5 basis points would give us in the top table $1,487,070. So, Mr. Chairman, those are I just highlighted or picked on the two most significant elements of the 4.6 million.
Mr. Chairman, how many institutions is this line of credit being sought from or committed to?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, as certainly you know, and I think hopefully the public will know, this was subject to a request for proposal, frequently called the RFP. So it was publicly known, and so any financial institution, either locally or abroad, had an ability to make submissions to the government to cater to this particular facility. I think in the end, Mr. Chairman, there are four local institutions that will provide this facility to the government. Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. So, honourable members have at the end, towards the end of the package of material, they have a tab saying showing Appendix 8, and on the third page of Appendix 8, we have the four banks, local banks listed there that are have agreed to let the government have a total of $403 million US, which we have converted into CI dollars, 330.46 million. So to answer the honorable member's question, 4 local institutions, local banks.
And those that
Member,
Can-
if I could just add one point to what he said, they submitted a single bid to government.
all 4 of them got together.
Yes, as a consortium and put
Well,
one
that's why
bid.
that's what I was going to ask. Is that the reason why you're so certain of all the standby charges? Because some would have different rates of standby charges, but you're certain of that. That's because they are doing it as one.
Mr. Chairman, that's correct, sir, and thank the honourable member for that query. Yes, we've got essentially a joint submission. So there is one standby fee, there's one arrangement fee.
These are commercial banks, not private banks.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, as honourable members will see, but the public will not see. On Appendix 8, the 4 banks are listed there, and I think these have been publicly stated before, so there's no reservations in saying them. No, it's 8, the third page of Appendix 8, at least in the bundle that I have. The 4. Right? Yes, so the 4 banks are listed there: CIBC, First Caribbean, Butterfield Bank, Cayman National, and RBC Royal Bank. Is it? Mine is. Yes, it's the first. Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I apologize. It's the first page of Appendix 9. Yes, sir.
Member for Bodden Town West.
Now, Mr. Chairman, and first of all, I want to thank thanks very much. First of all, I just want to thank the Ministry of Finance and the work that they have done in putting this. I can say from my own engagement is that this is a conversation I did have with the Minister of Finance also and members of his team. And first of all, I am happy that we are using the local banks, because these 4 banks actually represent $4 million a year in licensing fee. So at a minimum, people who are spending money with the government, they are getting some of it back. I think this is still the right approach in terms of having money available as opposed to drawing it as we need. Even though we do have some level of normalcy in the economy, the world is still in a very uncertain place. I mean, next week alone, less than a week to go, we have the U.S. elections, which can ultimately affect a lot of things in Cayman. So I think it's important for us to have this available. Many of us have also gotten concerns from people with regards to the reopening of the economy. So tourism is still a question mark beside it also. So at the end of the day, the best time to go borrow money or to look to borrow money is when you actually don't need money and you're less desperate. And I think this is the responsible thing to do. So I can honestly say that we are okay with this line of credit being available to the government. We're happy with the process. And as I said before, there are some things in this country that we do not get political with, and the finance of this country is one of them. So with that said, and my colleagues and I have also discussed this, and we are comfortable with the process, we're comfortable with the amount, we're comfortable with the days of the amount of cash that it represents and everything else. And I think at the end of the day, we do need to recognize that we need this kind of breathing room. So outside of that, Mr. Chairman, what I can say to you on behalf of the official opposition is that the $500 million line of credit and the fees associated with it there are very little concerns from the members of the official opposition, and we're comfortable with the process and the way it was done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I do appreciate it in the comments. All those in favor of FE7, fees arising from standby borrowing arrangements for $4,626,044, and BO12, central government borrowing, $500 million, standing part of the schedule to the bill, please say aye. Those against, no. The ayes have it.
Did we do LM13?
He did say, you said you have no problem with FE7 and BO12. We did LM13 the very first day.
So
we did LM13. We discussed that at length on Monday.
Yeah, this was the Airports Authority.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to rush.
No. I
won't
think
get through it.
I know on the COVID-19 at 40 million. You may probably want to take your lunch though for that one.
Can I take the vote on EI80? Is it?
Yeah, that's the one. That should be. Let me just double check my notes here. Yeah, that one should have been fine. That 52,000 is
okay.
You can take the vote on that. Then we'll just do the 40 million post lunch.
All right. All those in favor of EI80, Ministry of Finance and Economic Development, for $52,802, standing part of the schedule to the bill, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. Okay. It seems to be a very convenient time for us to take the. Do you all have a lot of questions on the OE 140? Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Let's go ahead and take the lunch break. It is now, according to that clock, it's 20 to 1. Let's be back at 20 to 2, please. Thanks.